Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. Philippine headline inflation cools to 1.3% in May, the lowest since 2016, boosting hopes for a rate cut by the BSP. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development sees the Philippine economy growing by 5.6% in 2025, much lower than the government's 6 to 7.5% target. U.S. President Donald Trump bans entry from a dozen countries, including Afghanistan, Myanmar, and Yemen, citing national security risks. And later in the program, Transport Chief Vince Dizon joins us live after President Marcos rejects his courtesy resignation, signaling full confidence in his high-stakes infrastructure agenda. Let's take a look at how global financial markets performed overnight. U.S. stocks closed mixed Wednesday as fresh data revealed the economic strain of President Donald Trump's trade policies. The ADP employment report showed private employers added the fewest jobs in over 2 years, raising concerns ahead of Friday's official U.S. jobs report. Investors are now watching for signs that trade uncertainty is weighing on the labor market and on consumer confidence.
We saw really weak ADP numbers come out this morning, along with very weak PMI, Purchasing Managers Index numbers, the weakest we've seen in roughly a year. That's driven bond yields down about 10 basis points across the curve, from 2s all the way out to 30s. So much lower yields on the day have led to a little bit higher stocks. Both the S&P, NASDAQ are a little bit higher today based on weak jobs numbers and the prospect that we'll see weak jobs numbers on Friday, and the prospect that the Fed may very well cut 25, if not 50 basis points come September to head off unemployment.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average dips 0.2%, the S&P 500 flat with a slight uptick, while the NASDAQ edges higher by 0.3%. In Europe, markets post modest gains. London's FTSE 100 adds 0.2%, Germany's DAX higher by 0.8%, and France's CAC 40 climbs 0.5%. Here at home, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas moves to make disaster relief rules for banks permanent, a bid to boost resilience in the face of future crises. In a draft circular, the BSP proposes to institutionalize regulatory relief measures first deployed during COVID and recent typhoons. This to ensure banks can keep lending even in times of distress. These include deferred loan payments and flexible terms for farmers, aligned with crop cycles and seasonal risks. The BSP also wants a standard forbearance framework for agricultural loans, citing the sector's vulnerability to climate shocks. If approved, these reforms could strengthen financial inclusion and mitigate credit disruptions in disaster-prone areas. The Philippine economy is now expected to grow by just 5.6% in 2025, well below the government's 6 to 7.5% target range. The latest outlook comes from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD. They cite strong consumer spending and a resilient jobs market, but they warn of headwinds that could weigh on momentum. The OECD sees growth picking up to 6% in 2026, helped by low unemployment and stable domestic demand. But that forecast does fall short of official goals, putting pressure on policymakers to deliver reforms that unlock private sector growth and sustain investor confidence. The Department of Finance signs a new joint memorandum circular to fast-track investment approvals in line with President Marcos's push to roll out the red carpet for investors. The circular seeks to create a more seamless, business-friendly environment by cutting bureaucracy and streamlining the process for strategic investments. The DOF says that the move will strengthen interagency coordination and help accelerate job-generating, high-impact projects across key sectors. The Philippine headline inflation rate eases to 1.3% in May. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority shows that this is lower then 1.4% recorded in April and 3.9% recorded in the same month last year. This is also the lowest inflation rate since November 2019 at 1.2%. PSA explains that this is due to slower price increases in the cost of housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels. Business leaders weigh in on President Bongbong Marcus's recent cabinet revamp. While some remain skeptical, many voice strong support for the new chief of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Sujin Kim reports.
A mixed but pragmatic reaction from the business sector. This was the general sentiment from industry leaders following President Marcus's much-hyped bold reset, which resulted in the replacement of only 3 cabinet officials.
I would say this is up. I think that's his call, and as a matter of fact, we did that. We in the business sector even went out to support that all the economic managers should be kept, because really the midstream they're doing a pretty good job.
Some warn that leadership changes, even minimal, could affect business confidence and long-term policy stability, while others maintain that resets are unsurprising and are a reflection of the realities in the corporate environment. Some downplay the political angle, focusing instead on fundamentals.
The politics with the small p, is really not very relevant to us. Why? Inclusion will always be there, okay? People will still need to loan. People will need income. The Philippines needs to prosper. So I think, whatever decisions they make out there, we should be good.
The business sector also reacted to the entry of attorney Francis Lim as the new chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
I know him personally, and I work with him with some. He's very qualified, and I think he should be an asset to the Security Exchange.
Business leaders now urge Lim to prioritize digitalization and streamline processes inside the commission.
They've been asked by the president to focus on digital transformation because, again, the key to transparency in government is to digitalize many things, diba? So I think Francis is going to have to do that. I'm sure he's going to have to review some policies, but I'm not sad that he's there.
Right now, when you transact with them, as if one department doesn't talk with the other department, and sometimes you file an application, they will tell you to produce some documents that they have on file, on the other departments. You won't get on. I think it's facilitation lang.
PCCI Chairman Sergio Ortiz Luis also hopes for lesser red tape in the commission. Sujin Kim, Billionaire News Channel.
President Bongbong Marcus creates a new advisory council to boost the global competitiveness of the Philippines' semiconductor and electronics sector, a crucial export driver and job generator. Under Administrative Order 31, the SEI Advisory Council will serve as the president's main strategic think tank on industry development, promotion, and policy alignment. The target, 128,000 new jobs in semicon and electronics by 2030. Special Assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs, Frederick Go, will chair that council with Trade Secretary Cristina Roque as the vice chair. The House of Representatives approves a 200 peso across-the-board minimum wage hike for private sector workers, marking a potential shift in national pay policy amid surging cost of living pressures. House Bill 11376, passed on third and final reading, would override regional wage boards for the first time since the late 1980s, reigniting debates on centralized versus regionalized pay setting. Labor groups say that the bill is a crucial step toward a livable wage. Federation of Free Workers President Sunny Matula says it could help millions cope with daily expenses amid sticky inflation. But business groups warn of unintended consequences. Employers Confederation President Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr. notes only formal workers, roughly 5 million people, would benefit while the vast informal sector is left out. The Philippines is expected to maintain stable shipping rates this June, even as regional freight costs climb ahead of tariff deadlines. Shipments are picking up toward the third quarter, but the country has so far avoided the freight surge seen in ASEAN neighbors. According to Dimerco's June 2025 Asia-Pacific Freight Report, rates are spiking for exports to the U.S., driven by rush deliveries before tariff relief expires. Still, the report warns that the start of the rainy season and potential typhoons could disrupt vessel arrivals in the Philippines, posing risks to supply chains in the coming weeks. We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back. Let's check on how Asian markets are doing this Thursday morning. As of 10:15, the Nikkei 225 is in the red, down by 0.2%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index is going the other way. It's in the green, up by 0.7%. Shanghai's Composite going the opposite direction, down by 0.1%, just like the Nikkei 225. And Singapore's Straits Times Index in the green, higher by 0.1%. Here at home, Philippine shares closed lower yesterday, Wednesday, as investors booked profits ahead of today's inflation report. The PSE fell 0.5% to 63.78, slipping back below 6,400. Now, this is sentiment weakened after the OECD cut its Philippine growth forecast to 5.6%, which is well below the government's target of 6 to 7.5% for the full year. Trading value was muted at 6.3 billion pesos. Now, investors are awaiting inflation data again, which came in below for more rate cut cues. Now, at the currency market, the peso opened stronger at 55.64 to the dollar, appreciating from the previous close. But let's take a look at the PSE index. PSE index is in the red, down by 0.1% to 63.73. Broader all shares index is higher by 0.2%. The financials, industrial counters are driving the market lower, while the holdings, property, services, and mining and oil counters are in the green. Volume is at 116 million shares and value is at 731 million shares. Market breadth is, however, positive. We've got 76 advancers, 55 decliners, and 40 stocks unchanged. And a recap at the currency market. The peso opened stronger at 55.64 to the dollar, appreciating from its previous close of 55.77. Now, the Philippine travel sector is pushing back after Transport Chief Vince Dizon urged Filipinos to book flights directly with airlines, a comment made after a price glitch on AirAsia's online travel platform. Tourism groups warn that the remark could undermine legitimate accredited travel agencies who provide expert advice, visa help, and emergency support for complex travel needs. They're calling for a dialogue with the DOTR, stressing their role in nation building and job creation. The Philippine Statistics Authority counts over 1,400 tourism and transport agencies nationwide, many catering to OFWs, seniors, and corporate travelers. Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon is now officially confirmed by the Commission on Appointments, locking in his role at a make-or-break moment for Philippine infrastructure. From pausing the 15 billion peso EDSA rehab to racing to finish rail projects before 2028, Dizon is under immense pressure to deliver on the president's orders for faster, fairer, more efficient mobility that drives economic growth. He joins us this morning to talk about the future of EDSA, the Mindanao Railway, and his vision for moving the Philippines and Filipinos forward. Can the DOTR unblock urban gridlock, rebuild public trust, and leave a legacy that outlasts this administration? Let's ask the man himself. Hi, Secretary Dizon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Maiki. Good morning.
Well, congratulations first on your confirmation.
Thank you
it's
very
good to
much.
have you at the helm of this very, very important agency.
Thank you.
Okay, so Secretary Vince, let's start with the EDSA rehab because that's what's on everybody's mind. The president hit the pause and reset button on this at the nth hour. What was the main reason for this?
I think the president, from the very beginning, made it very clear. He wants commuters especially and our motorists to have a comfortable and safe commute every day. That's hard given the inadequacies in infrastructure and the problems of our roads. It's very, very hard. So he spoke to many different sectors after the announcement of the EDSA Rebuild project, and he told the agencies of government in charge, DPWH in particular, who is leading the EDSA Rebuild project, to find a better way to avoid a 2-year gridlock on EDSA caused by the construction. He believes that
would you know, Secretary Vince, what were the gaps in the original plan that enabled the rethink?
I don't know if you call them gaps, but I think the main issue of the president was the time. It was going to take too long, 2 years, maybe even more, depending on how the construction goes. And I think this is mainly because of the conventional technologies and the conventional means that the DPWH was going to employ in the rebuild of EDSA. And the president said that there are better ways, and we are now tasked to find a better way to rebuild EDSA. And he said it should be done 6 months or maximum a year.
The timelines have changed drastically from 2 years to 6 months. What's doable given this, 6 month, half a year time frame?
We'll have to see what the lead agency presents to the president in a month's time. The president gave DPWH in particular and all of us a month to go back to the drawing board and to present a better plan. And that's what we're aiming to do.
Who are you consulting with to, to speed up this rehab?
I'm pretty sure that DPWH is consulting with the industry, with the construction industry.
And just to be clear, this is their project.
Yes.
This is the DPWH's project. Okay, so that EDSA rehab was supposed to cost 15 billion pesos.
Yes, in total.
In total, for 2 years of work. Given that it's going to be whittled down to 6 months, will there be a corresponding reduction in the price, you think?
Well, I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
We would have to wait for DPWH on that. But, I mean, just intuitively, you would think that, if it's cut down to 6, 8, 10 months or 12 months even, then there should be some reduction in cost because that's a lot of time. That's more than 50%.
That's right.
Less time to construct.
1 month review. What can we expect after?
I think the DPWH is working hard to find the technologies because right now this is really about technology. And I know a lot of our kababayans have been sending us messages about these new technologies that are done in other countries like Japan, like Europe, the United States, etc. But I think we'll leave it up to DPWH to find the best suited technology to meet the president's demands for a better way and a faster way to lesser inconvenience our people.
With or without the rehab, EDSA is a main choke point. Yes. What are the mitigation measures? I mean, you listed a couple of mitigation measures that would take place, granted the EDSA rehab was pushing through. Now that it isn't, all those all the coding schemes, that's been scrapped, right?
Yes.
But what else can we do over the short term and over the long term to fix the choke point that is EDSA?
I think for the Department of Transportation, our focus is mass mobility, meaning moving as many people as fast as possible as we can. And that entails mass transportation. So our original ideas, I think, will be implemented regardless of when the EDSA rebuild will happen.
Yeah.
And that is increasing capacity on the busway. We've already increased from 350 to 400 buses to date over the course of the last 2 months. We want to increase more, maybe up to 500 plus buses on the busway. And that will add tremendous capacity. And that will allow for our commuters to use a more efficient mode and a cheaper mode of transportation instead of using their cars.
Okay.
We also want to look at adding more trains to the existing MRT. And as you know, we've already drastically reduced queuing times in the MRT stations. And we're already rolling that out as we speak in the other lines, namely LRT1 and LRT2, to further decongest the system and allow people a more comfortable ride, but more importantly, allow them to save time.
Yeah.
Because that's really, I mean, if you recall, in the past, 1 hour to 1 hour and a half queuing time in an MRT station during rush hour, that's been cut down to just minutes now.
Okay. Now, speaking of the MRT, the government some years ago bought Dalian trains from China,
Yes.
but because of compatibility issues, we haven't fully been able to deploy
Yes.
all of them. Have you seen these trains? How incompatible are they,
Yes.
and will they ever be usable?
Yes, that's a great question. Because there was a study actually that was commissioned sometime in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. A study done by TUV Rhineland. It's a major construction consultant and infrastructure consultant, and they said that the trains with the proper mitigation, which essentially means ensuring that they are safe to run on our MRT line, can actually run. But this needs to be cleared by the current maintenance operator of MRT3,
Yeah.
which is Sumitomo Corporation of Japan. So I've spoken to them about this several times already, and I gave them a deadline to give me a report and a straight answer. What do we need to make these trains run? Because these are 48 trains.
Yeah,
These
that's
are
a
a
lot.
lot of trains.
That's a lot of
These are a
trains.
lot of trains.
Yeah.
And these could even actually replace the old trains that have been there since the 90s when the MRT3 was launched by President Ramos at that time. So, but we and I personally, I trust Sumitomo. I mean, they're one of the best in the world at doing this. And we all know the safety record of Japanese railways.
Yeah.
So we have to trust them, and they will meticulously go through their processes and make sure that these trains, if usable, will be used safely.
Okay, we've got a lot of things to touch on. We're just going to keep going at them. The Mount Kamuning footbridge, that's a moniker. It's not really a mountain, but because it's so high, 4 to 5 stories, people are calling it the Mount Kamuning footbridge. The president has ordered this to be taken down.
Yes.
What's the alternative going to be?
Okay, I was there yesterday, Mikey. My first time to go up the mountain. And it's funny because I checked on Google, and it literally says Mount Kamuning, and it says description hiking area. That's what it
Oh my
says on
gosh,
Google. I
okay.
mean, you can check it. It's really funny.
Yeah,
no? And
yeah.
And it's funny but very sad.
It's funny, but it's
Very
sad. I
sad.
mean, a
Very
US-based consul general criticized it,
Absolutely.
saying that it's proof that pedestrians are the
Are
last
not important.
priority, which is not, because you go to first world countries and pedestrians are king. So what's going to be done to change this?
But they're not in the Philippines, Mikey. They're
Not yet, but we're getting there.
A couple of weeks ago, I walked a couple of kilometers on EDSA, and I'll tell you, pedestrians are not the priority.
Yeah.
They are the least priority. And Mount Kamuning is a symbol of that. I absolutely agree with whoever said that. Because I went up this footbridge, and I was walking with elderly people, and they could barely go up this bridge, but there's no other option in that area except this bridge. So the president made a very, very clear and bold statement when we saw it together when he inspected the MRT last Sunday. And he said, that's unacceptable, tear it down, build a better one.
Why not an underpass? Why are we always doing overpasses?
Okay, an underpass is difficult to do. Very difficult given the state of the utilities
underneath.
and the drainage and everything underneath Metro Manila. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to do, and it's going to cause a lot of disruption on the roads where you build the underpass. Plus, it's going to be quite expensive.
Okay.
I absolutely agree that, as we see in other more developed countries, underpasses are really the way to go because they're the most convenient. They don't disrupt anything. They're not an eyesore. It's really the way to go. But unfortunately, it's going to take too long, and we have to build something relatively quick because the president really wants to tear this. I was going to say mountain, but tear this structure down because it's a symbol of bad infrastructure.
Correct.
I mean, and you know, the president's program is build better more. And him saying tear this down, build a better one is really the epitome of what Build Better More means.
And what's that going to take? It's
pedestrians.
going to be a great example of what this administration can do to build better more once
Yes.
it's done.
Yes.
But, how soon can we expect action on
Okay,
this?
so I spoke to our people after Sunday. Monday immediately we went I spoke to the engineers, and they came up with a nice design that I think will be much better. It's
How high?
not steep. No,
How
so it's
high?
actually just the level. It's even lower than the MRT station.
Okay.
But the key is it's going to be PWD friendly. It's going to be senior citizen friendly. There are going to be elevators on both sides and in the center, and it will also be moved to a different location. I think that's
There it is. We're taking
So,
a look
yeah.
at it. I mean, it looks great. Why didn't they do this in the first place?
I cannot answer
Of
that
course,
question.
yeah. You've just inherited all of this.
I think this was
right.
built
But what do
some-
you think? What do you think? Why?
I guess it's sad to say, I think it's just really not putting enough thought into something that we're doing. It's you want to build something and you're faced with a problem, because the problem in that area are really the wires of the MRT. Right? If you're going to build the footbridge in that area specifically, you have to avoid the wires of the MRT. And obviously you cannot build in between the wires and the train. That's impossible. So you've got to build above the wires. The problem is it's too high.
Yeah.
So and the span of EDSA is too narrow.
And it could have also been a cost issue. It could have been the cheapest solution at that time. But still, everything needs to be rationalized.
Yeah, but you have to put thought into
Yes,
it, Mikey. That's the
absolutely.
key. And the thought that
Absolutely.
our engineers put into this is, first of all, we cannot put it in the same location. That's the
Okay.
first.
Well,
We
it's
have to
good-
put it in a
It's
different
good to
location.
see this administration out front taking a hard look at these things and finding ways to fix
I
them.
mean, we have to. That is the essence of Build Better More.
Yeah.
And that is the essence of what the president said.
Okay. Speaking of Build Better More, another choke point is the San Juanico Bridge. Okay, this is an emergency situation because it links Samar to Leyte in the eastern Visayas. The rehab is set to cost 7 billion pesos, and monthly the loss with a relative closure of the bridge, it's 600 million pesos in losses monthly.
Yes.
What's the solution to this? What
Okay.
can we expect?
Okay, I was informed about this several weeks ago, and that same weekend, I personally went to Tacloban. I met with Mayor Alfred Romualdez and Governor Sherry Ann Tan of Samar and the Mayor of Tacloban. And of course, they had their frustrations about the timing of the closure and the notices that were given. But regardless, we have to find a solution. And the main problem right now is that essential goods that are usually carried on trucks cannot cross the San Juanico Bridge. So you've got goods that are stuck.
Yeah, it's a big
Leyte
problem
and
for
Samar.
trade and
It's
logistics.
huge.
Yeah.
And it's like closing an artery to your heart. The goods have to flow somewhere else, and it's going to choke the other points, right? So a lot of the ports now in region 5, 6, 7, 8 are all congested because of this one choke point. And what we did was there are two ports close to each other between Samar and Leyte. This is Tacloban Port and a port in Basay, Samar, which is called the Amendayan Port. So we are right now, we finished just yesterday the improvements to the Amendayan Port so that we can move Ro-Ro vessels and carry trucks across the San Juanico Strait from Samar to Leyte. That will help alleviate the congestion a bit.
Yeah.
But it's still not going to be the same because obviously these big boats can only take 20, 25 trucks at a time. And now we have roughly about 5 boats ready, and they're going to start plying that route by the weekend. And I'm going to personally go back there on Sunday to oversee that and to make sure everything goes smoothly.
Yeah. Okay. Who's managing the next steps? Who's in charge,
Well,
and what can we expect?
The retrofit, DPWH is in charge, but the president said we have to all work together to find a solution. And DOTR was tasked to fix the ports and to make sure that Ro-Ro vessels can take in buses and trucks. across the San Juanico Strait. That's going to start this weekend.
Okay. Speaking of another port, the airport system in the Philippines, that's top of mind for everybody as well, because it affects logistics, tourism, trade. Despite improvements, how do we solve the congestion issues at our main gateway, NAIA? I mean, I know a lot has been done already. The lines have been reduced, but what can we do to solve the bigger congestion problem?
First of all, I think President Bongbong Marcus made the boldest move in administrations past compared to administrations past. He made the move and decided, and not only decided, but actually did it, to finally PPP NAIA.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard decisions.
This is dated back, the PPP of NAIA has dated back to the term of President Ramos. And it's never been done. And it's only been done during the term of President Marcos. Now, we have an operator, a private operator in NAIA, led by San Miguel Corporation. And we were there with the President 2 days ago to show the improvements that have been done in less than a year. And to be quite frank, there have been a lot of improvements, Mikey. I mean, just the lines and the queuing and the feel of the airport. It's really a lot. There's more space. The lines are shorter. The movements are faster. I had a friend who came in from the United States visiting here just for a couple of days. And he's been coming back and forth for the past couple of years. And he said this is the first time he came to the Philippines where it literally took him less than 20 minutes from the time that he left the airplane to his ride on the driveway of NAIA. Just less than 15 minutes, less than 20 minutes. So that's never happened before. That is Changi or Hong Kong level speed. And that is something that I think we have to credit San Miguel Corporation for.
Yeah.
But really, the credit goes to the President for making that bold decision to privatize it. Because that's really the way to go.
Absolutely.
The way to fix congestion, not only in NAIA, but in all our other airports, is really to PPP them. That is the key. That is the key to make the passenger experience better. That is the key to make things faster. That is the key to developing our airports so we don't have airports with, broken toilets and broken lights and dirty bathroom, dirty comfort rooms, etc.
There's so much they can do when they work together,
Absolutely.
the government and the private sector.
Absolutely.
Can you give us an update on the Bulakan Airport, another San Miguel initiative?
Yes.
What's the status there?
It's ongoing. It's ongoing. And right now, we will be discussing the phasing, because obviously San Miguel is now operating NAIA for 15 years. Then we have Bulacan. So the key there is how do we seamlessly transition? Similar to Kai Tak in Hong Kong. If you still remember the old Hong Kong airport in the middle of the city, Kai Tak, and it moved to Chep Lak Kwok, which is the new airport. There was a seamless transition there for, I think, 10 to 12 years. So we have to do the same. And I think it's a good thing that you have one operator running NAIA, our old airport, and also building and will later on operate the new airport.
For the people watching and coming into this cold, what's the bigger picture for the airport system? What's the plan for Bulacan? Do you intend that to be the main gateway?
Yes, the idea, that's why it's called the new Manila International Airport, because that's really what it was envisioned to be. It was meant to replace NAIA, because NAIA, given all the congestion, given that it's in the middle of the city, it's probably one of the biggest causes of traffic in that area, stretching from Parañaque, Pasay, Taguig, Makati. It's really got to move as has been done with other countries, like Hong Kong and other countries.
Can you give us an idea of the timelines?
Well, NAIA's concession is 15 years. So I guess that is really the timeline to
Once
transition.
that shifts, wow, okay.
Yeah. So that's
going to be quite some time.
So but that's why San Miguel has committed to make NAIA more efficient.
Yeah, so they can focus on one before moving on to the
Well,
next.
they've got to do it in parallel.
They've got to do it in parallel.
Because obviously you can't end the concession of 15 years and then not having the other one ready yet. It's got to come seamlessly towards the new Manila International Airport.
There's just so much to do.
A lot of things
so
to do.
little time.
So little time,
in your space infrastructure, you've got 3 years left in this position. That's like a New York minute.
Absolutely.
What can we, and a lot of this stuff you just inherited, what is achievable? What do you hope to achieve within these 3 years, these 3 short years with this such a big infrastructure play?
Like the last time we were together, Mikey, I think the key is to understand what can be done.
You're really just planting the seeds.
You just got to find out what can we finish, what can we substantially complete so that whoever comes after is forced to make sure that this is finally completed. So right now we're focused on the proverbial low-hanging fruits, which is the infrastructure projects that have been there for so long but have not been completed, but have a great chance of being completed during this administration. And I'm talking about, for Metro Manila, I'm talking about the Common Station, which is, 15 years running today. The MRT-7, which is also another project that's been more than a decade in the planning and construction phase. Those two, I'm quite confident, will be finished by the end of the president's term, or even before, maybe around within 2027. Tapos na yan. Now that means that there will be seamless connectivity between LRT1, MRT3, and MRT7. And that's going to be a game changer for a lot of our kababayans who live in Bulakan, who live in Cavite, who live in the outskirts of Metro Manila, going into the city and going to Ortigas, going to Makati, Quezon City, etc. We also want to finish as many stations in the LRT1 extension. So going all the way to Bacoor, Cavite. So we want to finish as many of those stations as we can. And that, again, is going to be a game changer.
Yeah, I know right-of-way issues are a huge problem in
Yes.
this space. How big of a problem would you say it is right now?
It's always going to be a problem. Mike.
What can we do? What can we do to fix it?
In our limited time here, like the past 3 months that we've been here, the team of one of our assistant secretaries, her name is Assistant Secretary I.C. Calaguas. She used to be the city administrator of Angeles City. She has been able to acquire right-of-way that has been pending for years, Mikey, in only 3 months. So it is possible.
Okay.
It is possible, but you just need focus, and you
So
need
she
the right
set a
people there.
precedent. Okay, we can do this. I mean, especially
It can be
focusing on
done.
MRT, on the MRT project.
Focusing on MRT-7, especially the San Jose del Monte station, but also focusing on the north-south commuter rail from Valenzuela to Clark. A lot of those issues there that were pending issues for so long have now been unlocked. The subway, there are 5 major right-of-way problems there. 5. In the last 3 months, we've already been able to close 3 out of the 5, just in the last 3 months. So it can be done, Mikey.
You think
It
we
be
can
done.
fix those last 2?
I think so. We're almost there, but we have to go through expropriation. So that takes a little more time.
So what's
But
the
we
ask?
can.
What's your ask from lawmakers on how to clear these right-of-way issues so we can do things faster?
It's great you said that, because I just want to thank the House of Representatives and especially the Senate. Just last Monday, the Senate President, under the leadership of the Senate President and the sponsorship of Senator Mark Villar, they passed on second reading the amendments to the right-of-way law, which is a law. It's a law that's been there for so long, never been amended, and the amendments are really going to be game changers in our work to get right-of-way as fast as we can. And hopefully it's going to pass on third reading next week before Congress goes on sine die adjournment, and it can be signed into law very soon.
Okay, and now on a more personal note, a final question for you, Secretary Vince. You've been at the helm of the BCDA, at the helm of the DOTR. It's been very exciting since you've taken over. 3 years is a short time. 2028, especially in your space, is just around the corner. What's next for you? Have you thought about that? Are you so focused on the here and now?
But to be quite honest, since it's my second time on the show, I mean, I would really love to go back to the private sector after this stint. I think that's really where my heart is and my mind is right now.
Well, you keep doing what you're doing. I don't think you're going to be allowed to do that.
It's just, it's just a lot easier. There's no stress. Plus, I get to spend a lot of time with the family.
With the family.
That's really what I miss the most.
All right.
Especially by that time, my daughter's gonna be entering college. So
okay.
I have to make bantay. I have to.
One more question.
kailangan bantayan
What
ko
have
yung
you
daughter.
learned from your stints at the BCDA and DOTR? What have you learned now from all these years working with the government?
I think a lot of learning is on how to move things forward by working with other agencies very closely. For Rightofway, for instance, the key word for Rightofway is in Tagalog, tutok, focus. No, but in order to focus, in order to tutok, you really need to work with so many agencies because that's really the biggest challenge. DOTR cannot fix the right-of-way issues by itself. It's going to need so many agencies. It's going to need the local government units. It's going to need the Office of the Solicitor General, file expropriations cases. It's going to need the Department of Housing and the National Housing Authority if you're going to relocate informal settler families. So many. It's going to need the DENR. So I think
it's a web of collaboration.
It's got to be all about collaboration, but really focused collaboration. Because sometimes, you talk to someone and they say, "Oh yeah, that's okay, that's fine." 6 months later, it's not yet done. So it's got to be. You've got to just keep on hammering on the nail every day.
Well, you bring the vigor of the private sector into government work, and so we're happy to have you as our secretary for the DOTR. Thank you for your time,
Thank
Secretary
you so
Vince
much, Maiki.
Dizon. Learned a lot about what's going on in transportation, and we'd love to have you back for more updates on all of these big projects.
Thank you so much, Maiki.
All right, we're taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back. Two customs brokers are caught in an entrapment operation for extorting 2.4 million pesos from a freight forwarder in exchange for the release of their shipment. The suspects, sisters Wyeth Lara Navales and Laila Lara, initially took 500,000 pesos before demanding nearly 2 million more, according to the Bureau of Customs and the NBI. They allegedly named BOC officials to intimidate the victim. Both are now detained at the NBI detention facility on robbery and extortion charges. MFT Group CEO Maria Francesca Micatan Cancho has reportedly fled to the United States to evade arrest over her alleged role in a multi-million peso investment scam. The MFT Group is a private holding company that claims to have stakes in healthcare, food, retail, and venture capital, with offices in Southeast Asia, United States, and in Europe. It previously attracted high-profile investors and business partners. Sources tell Billionario.com that authorities have been unable to serve 2 arrest warrants, despite 2 weeks of search efforts, fueling speculation that Tan has already left the country. Tan faces criminal charges for allegedly operating unlicensed investment schemes. Investors were reportedly pressured into signing non-disclosure agreements, raising red flags in the financial community. On another front, the arrest of 39 undocumented Chinese workers at Dito's office sparks fresh questions about corporate accountability and national security amid growing scrutiny of foreign involvement in strategic industries. The telco, backed by Duterte ally Dennis Uy, admits there may be a slight technical impact, but says that the workers were contracted by a third-party provider and not by Dito directly. The company insists that their technical expertise may become less essential as operations evolve. Immigration agents raided Dito's office on May 29th, flagging the Chinese nationals for lacking proper documentation. Dito maintains the contractual arrangement was legitimate, even as authorities intensify efforts to track illegal foreign workers in critical infrastructure sectors. Top business leaders and market experts are welcoming the appointment of attorney Francis Lim as the new chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission, urging him to lead a new wave of capital market reforms. Lim, a former Philippine Stock Exchange president, is seen as the right leader to revive market activity, attract more SME listings, and speed up SEC transactions. Industry groups praise his track record, saying his leadership could bolster investor confidence, promote stronger corporate governance, and advance the newly signed Capital Markets Efficiency Promotion Act. With lower taxes now in place for stock trades and share issuances, Lim is widely seen as well-positioned to make the local market more competitive globally. As the new SEC chief takes office on June 6th, stakeholders are looking to him to push for regional integration, protect minority investors, and champion global best practices. Starting October 1st, Air India will fly direct between Manila and Delhi, a move that's expected to boost inbound tourism from one of the Philippines' fastest growing markets. Flights will operate 5 days a week using the Airbus A321 neo just as the Philippines rolls out visa-free entry for Indian tourists for up to 14 days. Tourism officials see the route as a key strategy to tap into India's high-spending travel market and offset declining arrivals from China. In 2024, over 79,000 Indian visitors came to the Philippines, a 12% jump from the previous year, but still behind regional neighbors. Air India says that the new service will strengthen ties, boost business, and bring cultures closer together. In a bold move to tighten U.S. borders, President Donald Trump signs a new proclamation banning entry from 12 countries, citing national security risks with potential ripple effects on global mobility, trade, and migrant-driven economies. These countries include Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Partial restrictions will also apply to 7 others, including Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. The White House says this fulfills a campaign promise to keep Americans safe from dangerous foreign actors. The timing comes just days after a deadly anti-Semitic attack in Colorado, which officials say accelerated the decision. Business groups and human rights advocates warn the policy could complicate supply chains, deter talent migration, and inflame geopolitical tensions. The ban takes effect on June 9th, with exceptions for lawful permanent residents, existing visa holders, and national interest cases. Former clients of Bernie Madoff, the mastermind behind history's biggest Ponzi scheme, will recover nearly $500 million in a new settlement with 2 Luxembourg funds. The funds invested solely in Madoff's firm for 3 years until it collapsed in 2008. Irving Pickard, the court-appointed trustee for Madoff's liquidation, says that the $498.3 million represents the full amount transferred to the funds before the fraud unraveled. To date, Pickard has recovered over $14.7 billion for more than 2,000 victims worldwide. For global business, this settlement underscores the enduring risks of weak oversight and blind trust in financial markets. It's also a reminder that compliance, transparency, and stronger due diligence, especially in cross-border investments, remain critical to preventing the next global fraud. Now, Britain expects U.S. tariffs on British steel to drop to 0 within weeks, a move that could recharge transatlantic trade and ease supply chains across manufacturing hubs. Prime Minister Keir Starmer says a trade deal with U.S. President Donald Trump, striking tariff relief on steel, aluminum, and cars is nearly ready for implementation. In return, the UK will open up to American beef and ethanol. The deal comes as Trump imposes new tariffs on global auto and metal imports, risking a ripple effect for suppliers from Europe to Asia. For global business, this signals a new era of selective trade favoritism, where deals are in and multilateral rules are out. Trade-reliant economies, including the Philippines, now face pressure to negotiate their own access before they're left behind. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us, and keep it here on BNC, the Billionario News Channel.